Welcome to the Wedding Songs Podcast, featuring newly released songs you need to know and the tried and true classics. Get song ideas from the time guests arrive until the last dance of the reception. And now your host, Matt Campbell, founder of MyWeddingSongs.com.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wedding Songs Podcast. I am Matt Campbell. Today, we're going to be talking about mixing at weddings. Today's guest to help me along with the topic is Mike Bacon from Ambient DJs. Welcome, Mike.
How you doing, Matt? Good, great to meet you and talk to you.
Awesome. I'm so happy you're here to help me along in this conversation about ways that DJs are mixing today, and in particular yourself. So just to get started, can you give me some examples, or one example is fine, of the most memorable wedding moment?
Off the top of my head, I would say that it happened at my own wedding. And this is good advice for other DJs that haven't gotten married yet or they're about to be married. I had DJ Demand, Jason Cohen, DJ me and my wife's wedding in September 2016. And one of the things he told me in the planning was, you should do a set. And I said, no, that's crazy, because we all know how quickly a wedding can go. I just felt like it was a little selfish on my part to do a set at my own wedding, and it would be taking away time from me and my wife. He said, just do 15 minutes. I think 15 minutes would be good. And I brought it up to my wife and I said, what do you think about me doing a set? Jason suggested it. And she goes, what, like an hour? I said, no. I said 15 minutes. And she said, oh yeah, that's fine. Totally cool. So fast forward to the wedding. I start to walk on the stage. This is at Hamilton Manor, Yardville, New Jersey. And I start to walk on the stage. I could feel the rush of the crowd because they realized what I didn't tell anybody I was going to do it. But once I got up there and started to touch the turntables, the reaction was one of the greatest reactions I've ever heard. I did a pretty basic set. I didn't want to go too crazy. Didn't want to take too many risks at my own wedding. I want to say I played Hip Hop Hooray by Naughty by Nature, This Is How We Do It, Montel Jordan, Be Faithful, Fat Man Scoop, Brooklyn Clan, and Black Sheep, The Choice Is Yours. There might have been a jump around in there or something, but that was like the focus of the set. And yeah, I think that's an all-time great wedding moment. Can I give you another? Just another came up.
Absolutely.
I did a wedding in Harvard, Mass. I want to say this was 2017. I might be off by a year, for the sister of a friend, and awesome couple, really nice. I go up there. It was just one of those days where I always feel like I'm good, but you can always pick apart your set, criticize yourself. You're kind of like your own worst critic. But this day, I'll say this day, I was on. There was nothing I would change about any moment of that day. The theme of their wedding was Love Supreme by John Coltrane. I'm not as familiar with Coltrane, not a huge old school jazz guy, but I thought, let me put this on before the couple walks into the room. When they do sometimes venues will have the couple do a walkthrough to see what the room looks like before everything starts. And they brought him in, and Coltrane was playing, and they had the biggest smile on their faces. And she's like, Coltrane's playing, all right. And everything went great from start to finish. It was as good of a wedding as you could ever have. The crowd was great. My mixing was on point, song selection on point. Everything was great. I had traveled from Hamilton, New Jersey with my wife to go there. This was a time where if I was traveling far, I would bring her with me. Now she usually stays home with the kids, but at this point we were still doing the traveling thing. She stayed overnight, and the next day we went to go get breakfast, and they were having a brunch breakfast thing for all the wedding guests, and we were invited. And I said, oh yeah, we can go over there. And she was like, can it just be me and you? I don't really know everybody, don't feel that comfortable. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So we went to the other side of the restaurant. We had our own, just me and her, breakfast, and we finished up and we're getting ready to leave, passing near the area where they're going to have their brunch, or they're already having it. I said, I think I should just at least say goodbye before we leave. She said, yeah, that's cool, let's go in. So I walk in with my wife, and we're walking into this area. You start to see people looking up, and you start to hear and there's this roar, this crazy reaction, and a standing ovation. And I'm looking behind me to see if maybe the couple had walked in, but it was for me. And it was one of the coolest moments. She was turning red. She didn't expect it. I didn't expect it, but it spoke to how good of a job I had done. And I think about that every now and then. So that's a great moment for me.
Well, I think that the point that you're hitting on is you surpassed their expectations. You gave them what they wanted and then 10x that. So I think that appreciation just tells you that you didn't play what you wanted to hear. You played what they wanted to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah, that you hit it on the head.
Before we go any further, why don't you tell me a little bit about you and your company and DJing weddings?
Definitely. I've been with Ambient DJs since 2007. I had sworn off DJing weddings before I joined. It just wasn't my bag as a youngster. I was probably about 25 at the time. I just wanted to do college events, clubs, bars, whatever, because my experience with other companies wasn't so great. They had a lot of forced routines. The mixing was very repetitive. You would go to one wedding one week and then the next they would play pretty much the same exact set. And I'm one that's okay with having some routine and having some go-to sets. We're not always going to have the most original set every single week, but it was very copy and paste. And I felt like this one couple was not this couple and that couple is not another. They're all very different. And there's no way they would like the same exact thing. So I felt like at that time, weddings were just different in that way. Long story short, it was winter. DJ work was kind of slowing down. I was doing construction on the side. It was miserable. I said, you know what? I got to find a company. It had been a couple years since I'd been with the company at that point. So I felt maybe I'm ready for it. Let's see what we got. And I looked up companies on Craigslist. And this is when Craigslist was much more reputable than I don't even know what it looks like today. So I found Greg. We met up and we just clicked. He gave me the idea or the notion that I was going to be able to be myself as a DJ, but still adhere to the structure and the way weddings work with our company. And it was a really good fit. We've just been growing and getting better every single year. We have a great team of DJs and photo booth operators. We do that as well. Weddings are our focus and it's our bread and butter.
When you say New Jersey, because I know there's a big difference between North Jersey and South Jersey, and I think you guys are more central. Is there a specific area that you guys target?
Central Jersey exists and we are in the center of it. I would say Central Jersey's our target, but we definitely are willing to work in the North and South and do. So that's not uncommon, but yeah, our main area would be the Central Jersey. We do events in PA, we do events in New York. For me, I mentioned Harvard, Mass. If it makes sense, I will go literally anywhere. I drove to DJ a wedding in Boulder, Colorado in 2022. We have our focused area, but if the terms of the wedding make sense, then I will do it.
I was just curious because I know some DJs focus on the North and South and Central, and I wasn't sure
For sure.
what your company does. So let's go ahead and get started on the main topic. Can you tell everybody a little bit about what quick mixing is?
Sure. So quick mixing in a nutshell is playing excerpts or smaller portions or the meat of songs and moving on from one to the next. Sometimes it might just be the chorus or the hook of a song. A lot of times it's one verse, chorus, and then you mix out. But essentially, it's cutting down the amount of songs you're playing due to many reasons. Some would say attention deficit with younger crowds in particular. If you go back to the 70s, the longer versions of songs were heavily embraced at parties. I've heard stories from other DJs or other people who attended clubs or different parties, and they love talking about how you could play not just Knee Deep by Funkadelic and let it run from start to finish, and it's a 17.5-minute song, or things like Rapper's Delight, the long version. Now, some DJs, and myself included, will play certain songs for about 30 to 45 seconds and keep it moving.
I appreciate the answer. Speaking of the quick mixing at weddings, then how many couples are requesting or expecting quick mixing at their weddings?
So with our company, we're free to book ourselves out. If someone was to come to me directly and ask for me to DJ their wedding, I would just run everything through our company, through the contract and everything, what have you. So most couples that book me either expect it or know that that's part of how I normally play. If they're looking for the DJ Iron Mike club style of mixing at their wedding, which a lot are. Sometimes I'll receive bookings directly from Greg, or leads that we might get from a Wedding Wire, The Knot, leads where they haven't necessarily heard of me or me mix before they decided to book. And what I've seen in the past year as a good handful of couples that wrote in their notes under pet peeves was DJs that don't let the songs play out. I thought that was interesting. So what I've done with that information is I've learned to adapt, and you figure out what the couple enjoys and what they like, what their crowd likes. And would I say I'm a hardcore quick mixer? The answer is no. There are some that no matter what, they're going to play the quickest. They're going to get in and out of every single song. My strategy is to get the most value out of every song. There are some songs out there that are worth playing out. Bohemian Rhapsody, would you ever cut that short for any reason, unless everybody left the dance floor, which rarely ever happens. Even songs like Love Shack, September by Earth, Wind and Fire, there are songs where people wait for specific parts. I've been known to cue point on Strive DJ Pro the bridges to songs, because I feel like the bridges are great parts. It's like that extra layer, even in today's, or should I say recent pop music. Beyonce, Rihanna, even Pitbull has some bridges that people are familiar with and they want to chant or they want to sing. And if you skip that part, you're missing out on some good quality stuff there.
That goes right into a statement that I want to make about that. Quick mixing is a true talent. Not everybody can do it. And there's so much preparation that goes into it. Like you said, the cue points and knowing what parts of songs, that I think maybe a lot of couples don't realize the amount of work and talent that goes into it. That if you're going to have that type of wedding, it really does take somebody that's skilled and knows what they're doing.
Agreed.
As a wedding DJ, what mixing styles are you using throughout a wedding reception? Like the cocktail hour, dinner, dancing, are you doing quick mixing during the whole wedding reception, or just
If I
booking
could,
parts?
I would. Usually with cocktail hour, we'll set a playlist, especially if it's in another room, which is 9 times out of 10. For dinner, yeah, I love mixing during dinner, because you can get in some good songs that you wouldn't normally play during peak hour or in your first dance set. You could still mix those in the way you would a regular set, and same concept. You're mixing in the key points of the song. I would say I definitely let songs during dinner play out a little bit more, but not all the way through. And the same goes for walking in, which I feel has become an underrated portion of weddings. When the door is open, when the guests are walking into the ballroom or the main reception area. Going back to my friend Jason Cohen, DJ Demand, we had a great conversation years ago where we were talking about that. And the old way of doing things was mostly you would usually have something like Sinatra, Dean Martin playing while guests were walking into the room, and it didn't really match the energy from where you're about to go. So say you got Summer Wind playing, and then all of a sudden you turn it down, you're ready to do your intros, and you have all this energy. All right, who's here? Who's ready to party or what have you? Make some noise if you're ready to meet the bride and groom, however you want to say it. To go from that to this, it just didn't seem right. So we started talking about songs that make sense for walking in, and songs that you maybe won't play during the course of the night, but they work for here, and you can gauge or get a good feel for how people are going to party. Playing something like I Can't Wait by New Shoes, or Genius of Love, Tom Tom Club, Lionel Richie, All Night Long, stuff like that. Even some newer stuff that maybe didn't blow up, like Leon Bridges. He's got a good one that I use. ILY by Surf Mesa, stuff like that. Sunday's Best, Surfaces. You could see people kind of moving and bouncing and doing a little move, and you can feel the energy, if that makes sense. You can get a good idea where things might go.
We're speaking the same language. I totally agree. Let's get away from all of that stuff to exactly what you're saying. It's new times. Let's play some upbeat music. This is a wedding. This is a celebration. Let's party, not put people to sleep, as they say.
Yes.
I have to ask you then, looking back in my days of DJing, I could say, okay, the average song was about 2.5 minutes. Now you're saying, okay, the song might be 30 seconds to a minute. How many more songs you must be playing must be an incredible amount, and the knowledge you must have of what songs go together. Can you speak on that, of just the number of songs that are played during a wedding?
Yeah, I would say the old way, or the way I used to do things, I would estimate that you would do about 20 songs per hour, right? If you were saying they clock in average 2.5 to 3 minutes. Now we're definitely touching into the 30 to 40 range at times. Depends on how wild I want to get that name. But yeah, like I said, I'm somewhere in the middle on this topic, which I think is good because I can look at both ends and say this is why it isn't the best idea to totally quick mix throughout the evening, and this is why it's a good idea. So I see both sides. Get those crates together, organize those crates, prepare, have the best versions, and have, like I said earlier, mark the cue points, especially of bridges. I'm trying to think of a Rihanna song, The Only Girl in the World, that take me for a ride. If you skip that, you're skipping some really good stuff. Yeah, I can't reiterate on that enough. They know this. Taylor Swift, a lot of times you have to play her songs all the way. It's a lot about knowing your audience too.
I totally agree. Like Blank Space, I would have a hard time skipping any part of that because the whole song is a sing along song. Like you said, Rusted Roof on B-52s. You have
Yeah,
to play that. You
you
can't
have to
skip
play it.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't skip that out.
So, of the days of TikTok, do you think that's been influencing how much the songs have become shorter at wedding receptions?
For sure. Yeah. And just the ability for any person to change a song at will. Say if someone's using Spotify or Apple Music, whatever their source is, I've seen people just hanging out, listen to 30 seconds to a minute of a song and just go next, next, next. And I think that ability to do that has ruined patience. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, for me, I remember anticipating certain songs that I really wanted to hear, and you had to wait. And that was it. There was no other answer unless you already owned it or you went to the store and you bought it. You had to wait to hear that song that you wanted to hear.
I agree. I remember listening to countdowns on the radio and having to press record just so I could capture that one song. That's funny. How many slow songs are you playing during the dancing part of the reception?
I like to try to get in two, normally around dessert. I think there are still couples that expect slow songs and like to dance to slow songs. You might have some seniors that maybe they're not going to go all out on the dance floor, but they'll make their way to have that one or two slow dance with their spouse. There are times where I'll work in some of the slow songs that might be on a request list. They might be on a must playlist. I'll work them into dinner just because I could tell that I'm not going to be able to play too many later on just based on the energy of the crowd. Say if the first dance set went great, I'm going to look at it like, yeah, I don't know if I could get all these in.
So, speaking of your sets, how many songs are you using in specific genres in a row? Like an example would be 3 country songs to 3 punk rock songs. Are you using any formula for your sets?
Yeah, it definitely depends on the reaction, but I'm definitely seeing, and I feel a lot of us are, couples that are aware of the idea of sets. You'll have brides and grooms that want a 90s 2000 era pop set. They want pop punk set. They want a hip hop set from the 90s or the 2000s. Dance music, EDM is now, it's almost like somebody wrote in on a planning form, golden age EDM, which I would think is somewhere around 2008 to 2012, 2013, the years of the big festivals booming. So yeah, there's an expectation that these songs are going to get grouped together. I like to be able to dip in and out of different songs, and I think it's a good thing to do. There are definitely some DJs that I work with that when they're starting, they have the mindset of doing nothing but sets. And I think you can become too predictable. And what I mean by that is, say if you played an oldies set and everybody got up, and then you moved on to an EDM set or a hip hop set or what have you. Once there are a contingency of people on the dance floor that understand that that's the direction you're going, and if that's not their thing, they're going to exit the floor because they have it in their head that you're going to stick to this lane no matter what for the next 15 to 20 minutes, most likely. Whereas if you do some sets and you kind of space it out. You throw in some different things in between, maybe one song from a genre, maybe two, and then go in a completely different direction. They have no anticipation, which is kind of good. They have no idea where you're going, and it's interesting. And I think that that's the true art of a open format DJ, that they go from one genre to another, from song to song to song, but then maybe occasionally work in a set. I think that's the best way I can answer that.
Yeah, I think exactly what you're saying with the talent of the DJ is very important at the reception. Whereas it's funny that you said the golden age of EDM. I think of when I was playing Captain Hollywood Project, Real McCoy, LaBoche, all of those groups. And and I know if you're going to play one of those and the dance floor clears, that tells you, okay, they're really not into that. Let's go into something else. And that's where that talent comes in of, okay, in quick mixing, you have to be able to quick mix out of it as well.
Agreed. And that's another set. That's one I didn't mention. I've done those a couple times at least this wedding season this year, where you're doing Real McCoy and Bizarre Incorporated, Amber, all that CNC Music Factory, all in one little block. So it is something that I feel couples are asking for, but you have to treat it like baseball. If you're a pitcher, you're not just going to if you keep throwing fastballs after fastball, they're going to know how to hit your pitch. So you want to throw in a curveball, you want to throw in a slider and change ups every now and then.
Awesome. So what are your thoughts on quick mixing at wedding receptions?
I think it's good to know how to do it. So practice, prepare, learn how to do it. If you know any other DJs, let's say if you're a DJ that doesn't know how to quick mix, or a little bit, lean on your friends, lean on other sources online. Maybe check out some YouTube videos, what have you. Have it in your back pocket just in case that's the couple that has hired you, because couples are different. We're not copy and paste like a lot of times. I don't want to apply that to all wedding DJs, but I feel in general, the week to week was pretty similar, where I could be playing completely different. I did a wedding last week where there was a lot of Afrobeat on Friday, and I didn't touch Afrobeat for the rest of the weekend. It could be very different, and their musical tastes are spread out. We're definitely playing directly to the couple more, I think, which is a great thing. So be prepared and adapt. If you have a couple that isn't into it, like I mentioned earlier, I was surprised to start to see that, because chances are that couple attended a wedding, or they went somewhere where they heard a DJ and they were just blowing through each song as quickly as possible. And I don't think it's a good idea to do that if it's not the right crowd or the right vibe. I do recommend knowing how to do it, because it's great in spots, especially if you have a big request list and you have an hour and a half left. Maybe dinner took a little longer than you expected. Maybe some things were delayed, but here you are, you got an hour left and you're looking at your sheet or what have you. You're looking at your platform online, and you still have, a good 30 to 40 songs you'd love to play. And here you are. That's where quick mixing's going to come in handy. And it's really about a feeling. It's about feeling out the crowd, paying attention to the vibe, and focusing on the key points of the songs, in my opinion.
You mentioned the wedding couples and music. Can you give any tips for couples that are planning their music when they're creating their playlists?
Yeah, I think, and I advise this to couples, because early in my DJing days and my wedding days, I had a couple that were they were big micromanagers. I allowed them to micromanage everything, because I do, in theory, want to be as flexible as possible for every couple. That's just my nature. I want them to have their vision. But sometimes when you control way too much, you ruin the chance of a better wedding. So I had a couple in Princeton where they micromanaged everything from song one to the last song. And I'm talking ceremony music, prelude music. Each song, okay, we're going to play this song at 5 o'clock. The next one's going to come on at 5:04. This one comes on at 5:09, 5:13, and so on and so forth. And in that very specific order. The early portion worked. It was fine, because everything just kind of stayed the course. Once we got to dinner, that's when it fell off the rails, because it's very hard to anticipate where things are going to go. I believe I was playing One by U2, which is kind of a strange song to play at a wedding dinner. It's kind of sad, but it was on their playlist. I'm following it. We're playing it. Brother of the groom comes up to me and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, look, okay, it's 7:49 now. And then after this," a little sarcastic, but So I'm showing
Right.
him the layout. He didn't know. So he's like, let me see this. And he takes my papers, brings it over to the bride and groom, and I could see them having this spirited discussion going back and forth. He takes the papers, rips them in half, and he throws them in the air. And he comes over and he goes, play what you think works. I said, all right, okay. I analyzed the crowd, started playing some disco, some 80s, and they hit the floor, and it was a great night. So I say all that to say that, lean on the expertise of the DJs. You can give your DJs I say a good amount of must plays is probably about 10 to 15. If you do some play if time allows, why not? That's usually an option on most platforms. I usually treat them like must plays. If all these songs are on your playlist, I'm going to try to get to as many as I can. That's always my goal. But also don't try to outcool your guests. Consider who your guests are. If you have a bunch of senior citizens on your list and there are no oldies or there are no line dances or there are no songs, maybe even say like Uptown Funk or Fireball, like usually there's some senior citizens that love a couple of the new to them songs, I would say. If you take that out of your offense, but you have these guests there, they're probably not going to enjoy themselves. So consider your guests and consider how they're going to react to certain things. I've seen couples pick very obscure sets and want to stick to it. I'll tell a brief story about that. Me and a friend of mine, DJ Spins, Chris Smith, we DJ'd a wedding together in North Jersey, and they had a very strict list. And there was a lot of obscure David Bowie songs I didn't even know, and I like Bowie. Same with Led Zeppelin. There's a lot of classic rock B-sides and songs most people aren't familiar with, and they were adamant that we stuck to it. So we played them. It wasn't really getting a reaction. People weren't hitting the floor, but we noticed that the couple would periodically leave the room to go partake in some extracurricular activities for about 15 to 20 minutes. So as soon as they began to do that, we would go into a Motown set or, what have you, maybe throw out a line dance, whatever we could to get the crowd going. Crowd hits the floor, boom. Then they come back and they would send a guy to tell us to go back to the playlist. That same floor would part like the Red Sea and leave. And that went on the whole night. Be mindful of who your crowd is. And I always tell couples as well, there's a time and place for everything. If you're a hardcore hip hop fan, I just had a couple that the groom loved Wu-Tang Clan. So do I. There aren't that many Wu-Tang Clan songs that normally work at a wedding, but they had some spin-offs, some solo songs that lean more into the club vibe. Or I had a party break that sampled different Wu-Tang beats that was a little bit more upbeat for a wedding, and it worked. Or I'll run into metalheads. There was a groom that he could care less about 99% of the music. He just wanted this one Kill Switch Gauge song, and I'm not as familiar with that. But I was like, yeah, we could do it. I'll figure out a way. And I waited until the last song of the night. Right after we did a big finale, I left a cushion so that I wouldn't go overtime. And I said, for the groom, he asked for this one song. So if everybody could hit the floor for him and have a good time with him, we'll see what happens. Boom, played it. And he said it was his favorite portion of the party, of the reception.
Love the story. Thanks for sharing. And it takes me back to my one tip I have for every wedding couple is that you can plan the music for any part of your wedding day, but just be more open during the dancing part of the reception. Don't be so rigid because it will affect if people have a good time or not.
Absolutely. For me, with my own wedding, a lot of my friends expected me to be like a playlist czar, to take control. And because I'm a DJ and I appreciate all types of music and I want this, that, and the other thing, particularly, and my wife said, the music is your thing. And I said, no problem. I only had 10 must plays. That was it. I want to be surprised. I want to see where the DJ goes. So I think if I could have that philosophy, most couples could probably adapt to that, right?
Awesome. Great tips. So is there anything else that you want to cover today?
I think we got the meat of everything. I'm trying to think. Are there any lingering topics about this?
Oh, I think we're good.
Cool.
So just to close it out then, where can people find you? How can they contact you?
You can contact me. My main go-to is Instagram at DJ Iron Mike NJ. I use that for almost everything. Same thing with my Facebook fan page. For our company, it's ambientdj.com. We're on social media as well, same way. But for me in particular, mostly all of my platforms are DJ Iron Mike NJ. because there are a couple other DJ Iron Mikes out there. I would find out later. But I decided that name when I was 15, and I'm going with it.
Love it. Well, thanks very much, Mike, for being on the show today. And make sure you tune in next week for another interview with a wedding professional. Thanks for listening and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Wedding Songs Podcast. Never miss a future episode. Subscribe today to our podcast. Follow us on Facebook at My Wedding Songs and send us a message about playlists you would like covered.